He was the man who made the earth shake, the super heavyweight who could flatten opponents with a single splash. John Tenta, better known as Earthquake, was a giant in the world of professional wrestling, but his life was more than just body slams and pile drivers. It was a journey filled with highs, challenges, and a whole lot of heart. Let's get into it. Born in Surrey, British Columbia, Canada, John Tenta was a natural athlete. Standing 6'6" and weighing over 450 pounds, he seemed destined for greatness in the world of sports. Tenta's early life saw him excel in wrestling during his school years, earning scholarships and even dabbling in sumo wrestling in Japan. But what truly set Tenta apart wasn't just his size or skill, it was his heart. Both fans and colleagues respected him as a gentle giant, someone who brought passion and professionalism to everything he did. Yet, like any great story, Tenta's journey wasn't without challenges. Here are some controversies John Tenta was a part of, despite being such a legend. Before he was Earthquake, John Tenta was a sumo wrestler in Japan. He was a natural, racking up wins and climbing the ranks. But sumo life wasn't for him. It was strict, and some traditions didn't sit right with him. Plus, he had this awesome tiger tattoo that he had to keep covered up, because tattoos were a big no-no in sumo. So he walked away, which ruffled some feathers in the sumo world. When he decided to leave sumo, it wasn't exactly a graceful exit. His stable master and the Japan Sumo Association were not happy. They accused him of arrogance, saying his early success had gone to his head. For Tenta, though, it was about finding his true path, and that's what led him to professional wrestling. One of Tenta's most infamous moments happened during a match in Japan against Kitao. Kitao, known for his unpredictable and rebellious nature, turned what was supposed to be a scripted wrestling match into a real fight, a shoot fight, as they call it. It started when Kitao refused to sell Tenta's moves, basically making the match look fake on purpose. Things escalated when Kitao began shooting on Tenta, threatening to gouge his eyes out. But Tenta wasn't one to back down. He retaliated with a stiff kick, and the match had to be stopped. If that wasn't enough drama, Kitao grabbed a mic afterward and declared to the crowd that wrestling was fake. The incident caused a stir, leading to Kitao's firing. Meanwhile, Tenta earned respect for how he handled himself under such bizarre circumstances. While Tenta entertained millions in the ring, he was fighting his own battles behind the curtain. Years of physical punishment took a toll on his body, leading to a dependence on painkillers. It wasn't an easy thing to admit, but Tenta was open about his struggles. He sought help and worked to overcome his addiction, showing the same resilience in his personal life that he did in the ring. But not all opponents are easy. In 2004, Tenta faced his toughest opponent yet, cancer. He was diagnosed with advanced bladder cancer, and doctors gave him just months to live. But if you've learned anything about John Tenta by now, you know he didn't give up without a fight. Tenta underwent chemotherapy and continued to make appearances when his health allowed. He spoke openly about his battle, using his platform to raise awareness about cancer and encourage others to seek early detection. Despite his courage, the cancer spread, and on June 7, 2006, John Tenta passed away at the age of 42. His death was a heartbreaking loss for the wrestling world, but his legacy lives on. It is sad that he is gone, a talent lost too soon. But don't worry, his legacy is still alive because people like you and me remember him. To honor his legacy, here is a quick rundown of his epic career. John Tenta was born in Surrey, British Columbia, and from the very start, he stood out. Weighing over 11 pounds at birth, he was destined to be larger than life. By the age of 6, John already knew he wanted to be a wrestler, inspired by greats like Gene Kiniski and Don Leo Jonathan. John started wrestling in high school and was so good that he became a champion. When he was 18, he even competed in a big international wrestling championship in Vancouver. He did really well, finishing 6th in the super heavyweight category. John was such a talented wrestler that he got a scholarship to Louisiana State University, LSU, in the United States. He was a star on their wrestling team, and everyone called him Big John. He was really popular with the fans. Not only was John an amazing wrestler, but he also played football and rugby. He was a super athlete. But even though he was this big, strong guy, he was actually very calm and quiet off the field. His teammates called him the Silent Giant. When LSU decided to stop its wrestling program, John had to figure out what to do next. He decided to try something completely different and moved to Japan to become a sumo wrestler. He was given the name Kota Tenzan and started training. He learned the sport quickly and started winning matches, but in the end, he realized that sumo wasn't really for him. Luckily, Japan had something else in store for John. He switched from sumo to professional wrestling and joined a famous Japanese wrestling company. He spent about a year and a half wrestling in Japan, and he got really good. People in North America started to notice him, and soon he was invited to join the World Wrestling Federation in the United States. This must have felt like a dream to him. John joined the WWF with a new name, Earthquake, where he made a really dramatic debut. He pretended to be a fan in the audience during a show, and then suddenly jumped into the ring and attacked another wrestler named the Ultimate Warrior. It was a total shock. Earthquake had a really powerful move called the Earthquake Splash, where he would jump and land with all his weight on his opponent. It was a scary move, and he quickly became one of the WWF's biggest bad guys. Earthquake's most famous rivalry was with the legendary Hulk Hogan. During a TV interview, Earthquake attacked Hogan and injured him really badly. Fans were worried that Hogan might have to retire. Earthquake and Hogan had a bunch of exciting matches, including a huge one at SummerSlam 1990. Even though Hogan won in the end, Earthquake proved that he was one of the best wrestlers in the world. Earthquake wasn't just a solo act, though. In 1991, he teamed up with Typhoon to form the Natural Disasters. These two were a force to be reckoned with, literally shaking the ring every time they wrestled. Managed by Jimmy Hart, they became WWF Tag Team Champions and had some incredible matches against teams like Money Inc. and the Legion of Doom. Fans loved them, especially after they turned good guys. But let's talk about one of Earthquake's most infamous moments. Remember his feud with Jake the Snake Roberts? This is the one where Earthquake crushed Jake's pet snake, Damien, during a match. Now don't worry, it wasn't a real snake. It was just a bag stuffed with hamburger meat, but it sure fooled the audience. Fans were shocked, and the whole thing added to Earthquake's reputation as a terrifying villain in the ring. After leaving WWF in 1993, John returned to Japan, wrestling for various promotions. But he made a brief comeback to WWF in 1994, where he had one of his coolest moments, a sumo match with Yokozuna. This wasn't just a gimmick. John actually had real sumo training, and he showed it off by winning the match. It was a fun throwback to his early days in Japan, but not everything is fun and games. Clearly not when you have financial troubles. In the mid-90s, John Tenta, known to fans as the Earthquake from his WWF days, found himself in some tough financial situations. So he decided to make a change. His good friend Hulk Hogan reached out to WCW to get Tenta a spot, and soon enough, Tenta made the switch to WCW. Before arriving in WCW, Tenta had a brief tour in Japan with UWF International, where he teamed up with the powerful Super Vader. But once he got to WCW, he was introduced with a new character, Avalanche. He was part of the Three Faces of Fear, a villainous faction led by Kevin Sullivan, and was billed as weighing 517 pounds. As Avalanche D, Tenta went head-to-head with some of WCW's biggest stars, like Sting and Randy Savage. At the Clash of the Champions, Tenta teamed up with The Butcher and Kevin Sullivan to face off against Hulk Hogan, Sting, and Dave Sullivan in a six-man tag team match, but they lost. A few months later, he faced Sting at the Starrcade, where he lost by disqualification. Tenta's matches often saw him at the receiving end of losses, like in Super Brawl 5, when he and Big Bubba Rogers were defeated by Sting and Randy Savage. Despite his bad luck in the ring, Tenta kept pushing forward. But then, WCW had to change his character again. Due to concerns from the WWF about the similarities between Tenta's Avalanche character and his old Earthquake gimmick, Tenta had to drop the name Avalanche. He rebranded himself as the Shark and became a member of the infamous Dungeon of Doom, another faction led by Kevin Sullivan. The Shark was a complete departure from his old persona, complete with a huge shark tattoo on his arm, something that Tenta himself wanted to do, even though rumors suggested WCW had forced him into it. Tenta stayed in the Dungeon of Doom for a while, participating in major matches like the Fall Brawl 1995 War Games match, where he lost to the Hulkamaniacs, Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Lex Luger, and Sting. After a series of matches where he was on the losing side, Tenta eventually dropped the Shark gimmick and wrestled under his real name, John Tenta, and started to be more open about how he felt about constantly being put into different gimmicks over the years. His final major run in WCW came in 1997, when he briefly teamed up with Roddy Piper, But the angle was quickly dropped when Piper joined the Four Horsemen. After that, Tenta's time in WCW came to an end. However, in 1999, he made a brief return to WCW, where he wrestled in a dark match and defeated Lash LaRoe on Monday Nitro. After a stint in WCW, he returned to the WWF in 1998, but fans might not have recognized him. Gone was the fearsome Earthquake, replaced by a masked wrestler named Golga. This wasn't just a name change, it was a complete character overhaul. Golga was a member of the Oddities, a group known for their outlandish personalities and strange antics. He wore a gold mask and seemed to be obsessed with the popular cartoon South Park, often mimicking the mischievous Eric Cartman. Why such a drastic change? Well, Tenta had lost a significant amount of weight, and the WWF felt that his imposing Earthquake persona wouldn't be believable anymore. So they decided to go in a completely different direction, embracing the absurd and creating a character that was both bizarre and entertaining. The Oddities, which also included the towering Kurgan and the controversial Insane Clown Posse, became a unique attraction in the WWF. They competed in a number of matches, even scoring victories over established teams like Kaientai, the Legion of Doom, LOD, and Draws. For a while, it seemed like the Oddities were on the rise. However, the group's success was short-lived. Internal conflicts arose, particularly with the Insane Clown Posse, who eventually turned against the Oddities. By the end of 1998, the group's momentum had fizzled out, and they were no longer a prominent part of the WWF's storylines. Tenta's time as Golga culminated in the 1999 Royal Rumble. He entered the match at number 3, but his hopes of winning were quickly dashed when Stone Cold Steve Austin eliminated him. This marked the end of the Oddities, and they soon faded from television. Though the Golga character was retired, Tenta wasn't quite done with the WWF. He made a brief return in 2001, resurrecting his Earthquake persona for the gimmick Battle Royal at WrestleMania X7, a match that featured many legendary wrestlers from the past. Unfortunately, Tenta's comeback was cut short when he was eliminated by Kamala. He had one more match, a victory over Tank Malosh, before finally hanging up his boots for good. After leaving the WWF, Tenta didn't retire from wrestling. Instead, he took his talents to the independent circuit, working in various countries like England and Canada. These years were less publicized but gave Tenta the opportunity to continue wrestling at smaller events, often competing against younger talent. His time on the independent scene kept his name in the business. Even though he wasn't part of any major promotions, Tenta spent his last year in wrestling feuding with top stars like Keiji Muto and Mike Awesome. He also formed a tag team with Jerry Tweet, who had previously worked on the independent circuit as Malice. Together, they battled against some of AJPW's top talent. Throughout his final year in AJPW, Tenta had a mix of traditional and hardcore matches, often showcasing the wrestling skills that made him a fan favorite throughout his career. His time in Japan was a fitting way for him to wrap up his legacy as a professional wrestler. And that's a wrap on the legendary career of John Tenta, a man who truly knew how to adapt and evolve in the world of professional wrestling. Whether it was as the powerful Earthquake in WWF, the mighty Avalanche in WCW, or the quirky Golga in the Oddities, Tenta was never afraid to try new things and reinvent himself. His time in the ring showcased not just his strength and skill, but also his ability to connect with fans, no matter the character he was playing. From intense rivalries with the likes of Hulk Hogan and Sting to his fun moments with the Oddities, John Tenta was always able to keep things interesting. It's amazing to look back at how many different roles he played throughout his career and how he always managed to leave a mark, whether as a top villain or as part of an oddball group that fans still remember today. Tenta's journey proves that wrestling is more than just a match. It's about creating memorable moments that stick with fans for years. If you enjoyed this deep dive into his career, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on more wrestling content. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What was your favorite John Tenta persona? Was it Earthquake, Avalanche, or maybe Golga? Drop your comments below and let's talk about it. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you for being here, and I can't wait to bring you more wrestling stories. Stay tuned for more, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, and until next time.